Zay in the area. Welcome to the Nerdverse. Stop for a moment. Take a deep breath. Because Chapter 30 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex is not an ordinary chapter. It is not an explosive action chapter, nor one designed to impress visually. Above all, it is a chapter of narrative positioning. Here, the story makes it clear that the conflict will not be decided solely by brute force, but by choices, sacrifices, and each character's willingness to cross moral boundaries. And before we move on, leave a like, share this video with anyone who follows Boruto, and subscribe because this analysis is long, deep, and completely changes how this arc should be read. Let's start with the cover. At last, the Mamus takes center stage, and this is not merely an aesthetic detail. Boruto 2 Blue Vortex treats its covers as visual discourse. The Mamus are depicted in a grotesque, almost uncomfortable way to look at Tan that is intentional. They are not creatures meant to be admired. They are threats that exist outside natural logic. Their ugliness communicates something essential. This arc is not about beauty, classic heroism, or iconic scenes. It is about survival, strategy, and difficult choices. The fact that this cover took so long to appear also says a great deal about the pacing of the series, which prefers to build tension slowly before placing these figures at the center of the narrative. When we entered the battlefield, the chapter makes it clear that every character there has a specific role, and none of them are present by chance. Himawari once again becomes the focus with the Bijou. But it is crucial to clarify something here. The point is not that she can use the technique. The point is that it happens without planning. The Bijudama emerges as an emotional response, not a strategic one. It reflects an immense power that is still not fully under control and that is dangerous, not only for the enemies, but for allies as well. This is the moment in which Shikadai establishes himself as one of the most important characters in the chapter. He acts quickly, restrains the Mamus with his shadows, controls the space, and allows the Bijudama to be launched into the sky, preventing the destruction of the Hidden Leaf Village. This scene clearly shows the difference between power and leadership. Himawari has power, Shikadai has battlefield awareness, and the tension between the two is essential to the chapter, because it makes explicit that without communication, even an ally can become a threat. That same logic extends to the other members of the group. Chocho, for example, deserves far more recognition than she usually receives. In this chapter, she is not merely brute force. She represents physical presence on the battlefield, stability, and intimidation. Her strength here is not just destructive, it is strategic. She occupies space, holds ground, and conveys security to her allies. In a scenario where chaos could spread quickly, characters like Chocho function as anchors. She does not need a grand speech or a transformation to prove her worth, the simple fact that she is there. Standing firm already says a great deal. Inojin also gains relevance gradually, and this is handled intelligently. He begins as support, as he always has, but the chapter lays the groundwork for a turning point. He is not portrayed as weak or irrelevant, but as a piece that will be moved at the exact right moment. And when that moment arrives, the narrative weight is immense, because it involves one of the most delicate jutsu in the entire Naruto universe, the mind transfer technique. Before that, however, the chapter presents an extremely controversial scene involving Boruto. He is momentarily captured by village jonin, thrown to the ground, insulted, and treated as a threat. And here, it is important to be honest. This scene is weak from a narrative standpoint. Not because Boruto cannot be confronted, but because the context does not support this vulnerability. Boruto is in a state of maximum alert, fully focused on the Mamus, determined to save the village. For him to be caught in this way, the narrative needs to force a distraction that is not convincingly constructed. This sequence seems to exist more to reinforce Boruto's emotional isolation than to advance the plot. The problem is that Boruto's isolation is already more than well established. He lost his parents, lost the village, Los Chihei's name. Throwing him to the ground at the hands of a few jonin does not add much to that. Still, the scene fulfills a symbolic role. It shows that Boruto continues to be seen as a foreign body within his own home. The chapter then completely shifts tone when we enter the interrogation. Here, Kashin Koji definitively takes control of the narrative. He does not raise his voice, deliver long speeches, or attempt to persuade anyone emotionally. He simply acts. Kashin creates a false sense of control, allows Boruto to hear the conversation, and then calls Inogen to act. The request is simple and terrifying. Use the mind transfer technique. This is one of the most tense moments in the chapter because any veteran Naruto reader understands the risk of this decision. Mind transfer does not erase memories, eliminate suspicion, or create trust. It merely forces actions. Using this jutsu on an interrogator who already distrusts the hidden leaf is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline, and yet the plan works. And the fact that it works makes everything even more uncomfortable. Inogen executes the jutsu successfully, marking a turning point for his character. He ceases to be merely support and becomes a direct tool of manipulation. The shock is not only for the interrogator, but for the reader. How far are these characters willing to go? To what extent is it acceptable to use techniques that violate another person's mind in the name of a greater objective? At this point, Sai enters the scene with full force. From the beginning of the manga, Sai has shown distrust, and here it erupts. He notices the behavioral change, senses that something is wrong, and reacts immediately. This makes perfect sense when we remember his past. Sai was shaped by Ambu, lived under Danzu, and understands manipulation better than anyone. He recognizes the signs not out of paranoia, but because he has been on both sides of that coin. The confrontation between Sai and Shikamaru is one of the strongest moments of the chapter. It is not merely a clash between a father and a leader, but between conscience and strategy. Sai does not accept evasive answers. He demands explanations, and Shikamaru, even as Okage, cannot fully evade them. The internal trust of the village begins to fracture right there. And then we reach the true core of the chapter. Kajin Koji, without hesitation, without showing doubt, he orders that the interrogator be taken to the courtyard where the Mamus are. He is sending that man to his death. And the most disturbing part is not the order itself, but the naturalness with which it is given. For Kajin, this is not cruelty, it is logistics. This clearly reveals who Kajin Koji is in this arc. He is not a classic villain. He does not want to destroy the world. He believes he can see the future, that he understands the possibilities, and that only one path leads to survival. And if following that path requires sacrificing people, he does not hesitate. He does not act out of hatred, but out of conviction, and that makes him extremely dangerous. The chapter ends without major battles, explosions, or visual climax, but it ends with something far heavier: uncertainty. If the interrogator dies, a new investigation begins. If he survives, he becomes a living threat. There is no clean choice, only bad choices. And that is exactly what Boruto to Blue Vortex wants to communicate at this point in the story. This chapter makes it clear that the series it is no longer just about power, but about responsibility, sacrifice, and consequences. If this analysis resonated with you, leave a like, share it with fellow Boruto fans, and subscribe so you do not miss the next videos, because what lies ahead promises to be even heavier. Take a deep breath, because the game has not just begun, it is already becoming dangerous.